All right, we are live once again. First off, thank you to everybody that tuned in to our to round one tonight, relating to the Class family and the lovely Cherie. Cancer sucks, ladies and gentlemen. So I want to thank everybody in the paranormal community that's gotten on board with this cause to help out in any way, shape, or form they can. Greatly appreciated, of course. Of course, now where do we go, Dale? We say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whatever it is for you, wherever you are on the static planet. My name is Michael John of Michael John's Paranormal Ghost Stories, available on all Amazon outlets. That is my co-ghost host, the man of the hour, the man of the power, too sweet to be sour, my BFF since grade 5. What the hell? How old are we? Jeez. Dale, high spirits.
We're 5. We're 5 years old.
5? That works. I feel like that sometimes, man. Together, we are the voice of the paranormal, the voice for the paranormal. We are Windsor, Ontario's own and proud, the paranormal voice. Thank you, everybody, tuning in right here, right now, live with us. Everybody tuning in to us on KGRA Digital, which will be the 1 a.m. spot every Saturday night on all streaming platforms. That is worldwide. Hashtag blessed, thankful, grateful, humbled that we have that opportunity ongoing with KGRA Digital. Very lucky to have that going on. Dale, not much to say that hasn't been said already. Well, maybe there is. We can talk real quick. We got to talk about our sponsors, of course.
Yes.
The ghost hunts at the Western Block. If you look under the left of myself, where I'm pointing down at, ghost hunts at the Western Block in Lockport, New York, brought to you by our good friends, the Buffalo Phantom Hunters. That is the awesome Frank Kupka, the paranormal beast, if you will, and the lovely Heather Van Voos. We've been there on one occasion, and the way we talk about it, you think we've been there multiple times, but it was such an experience. Shadow figures peeking around the corner while we're hanging around in Heather's office, talking in the middle of the night after all the tours were done. The disembodied voices, the whispering, the whistles, a door shut on command. What a place. If you want to go somewhere cool, you want to ever experience somewhere haunted, you're like, I want to go on a road trip. It's my only opportunity to do it. I got a little bit of cash saved. I want to make it worth my while. Head on down to Buffalo, New York. You can get all the information on their website, hauntedwesternblock.com. Again, ghost hunts at the Western Block in Buffalo, New York. Those are our guys. I'm telling you, tell them the paranormal voice sent you. It can't hurt you. That's for sure. Oh, maybe it will. I don't know.
It all depends. But yeah, also too on just below me, over here, over there, over there, yeah, right there, boom, right there. You see a QR code. That is, as we just announced just a little bit earlier today, July 13th, starting at noon p.m., live on KGR Digital Media on their YouTube page, their Facebook page, on all the podcast platforms. You're going to be able to be a part of our fundraiser for Cherie Class, the daughter of Dan Class, a good friend of ours and good friend of everybody in the paranormal field for those. So join us. So this QR code will go right to the GoFundMe page. It's going to be up on this screen. It's going to be a part of our broadcast until the day we get the good news that Cherie has fought her way through cancer and is on the road to being who she is, and that's a beautiful little girl. So people, please donate to the GoFundMe page and also join us July 13th, KGRA Digital Media, as we are going to have a marathon that's going to start at 12 noon p.m. Eastern time and go to who knows when, because we have the who's who of the paranormal coming out. We have the lovely Andrea Perrin coming out. We have Dessa Perry coming out. We have Jeff Belanger coming up. We have Chad and Heather Dye from Dye Paranormal and organizers of the Midwest Parafest. They are going to be a part of that as well. And many, many, many more. So people stay tuned to our socials. You're going to see who's going to be coming aboard and being all part of helping us raise some money for the class family. But in the meantime, we want to get right into our guests. I've been so excited since this gentleman has reached out to me, told me what they're about, and of course, everybody loves EVPs in the paranormal field, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about here today, folks. So, Michael John, take it away, brother.
Well, we were just talking to him quickly backstage. Interesting pair, or trio, if you will. I think there's 4 of them total. They've created something called the Staticom Project. A whole different approach to investigating. And Dale's mentioning EVPs. Who doesn't love a good EVP? That is the icing on the cake when it comes to paranormal investigating. EVPs are the fun. I mean, that's the holy grail. You get a couple of those. If you get your first EVP, you're hooked for life, in my opinion. I know that really reeled me in, if you will. I got so much to look at from their bios. I don't know what part they've done so much. It'd be easier to say what they haven't done. We have Tony and Cherie Rathman, first off, as well. Ron Iacovidi. Oh my God, I even asked that backstage. He's a 4-time author. I want to pick his brain for sure. A stand-up comedian. That correlates into the paranormal. We're going to touch on that for sure. Paranormal investigator, of course. All the above. What a plethora of things to talk about for sure. Without further ado, as they say, let's bring them all out. Ron Iacovidi, Tony and Cherie Rathman, the Staticom Project.
Hello.
Thank you for having us on.
Oh, thank you for joining us here. Thank you for being a part of the TPV Nation. We love getting out there, talking to people in the field, and what you guys are doing seems to be something that the paranormal field just absolutely loves, and that's the EVPs and your project as well. So let's start with Tony, and we'll go right across to Cherie and then Ron. So just introduce yourselves a little bit, talk about what brought you to the paranormal field, and then we'll go from there. So Tony?
Well, let's see. 14 years ago, I kind of got suckered into it because I was a complete skeptic, didn't believe any of it. Cherie, we normally on a Valentine's Day weekend would go hang out by the pool, swim, drink. And she said, I want to do something different this year. I said, okay, what do you want to do? She goes, I want to go paranormal investigating. And I was like, oh my God. Well, I had 2 choices. I could take her or I could have her mad at me until next Valentine's Day. So obviously I took her. But it was after the entire weekend. I mean, I played along, I did the investigation with her, and she had fun. That's all I cared about. But when we got home, and she was calling me over every couple of minutes, what's in this picture? This wasn't here when we took it. What is that? Whose voice is answering this question? How is that possible? For months, I was mind blown. I couldn't figure it out. I tried to rationalize it. I tried to come up with reasonable explanations for how this was happening. Couldn't do it. And that's how I got started. That was 14 years ago. And I was fascinated with EVP. Then we started building spirit boxes for about 12 years. And then Ron and Lourdes introduced us to what they were working on, which was called direct radio voice. And I'll let him explain that, but that's how we got involved. And that's how direct radio voice has now evolved to Staticom.
Nice.
Ditto.
Sure.
He already told everything.
That's amazing. And what does not say love better than going on a paranormal investigation?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Ron, what about you?
Well, so I'm in New Jersey now. I'm originally from here. I lived in Los Angeles for 14 years. And during that time, when I had gotten separated and I was seeing somebody, we couldn't agree on 8,000 channels of TV to watch anything. Ended up being a paranormal show. And then found out that a lot of the locations that some of the shows like Ghost Adventures were frequenting were in the Southern California area, somewhere nearby. So we started to go. We got drafted to be on a team from one of the public events. At that time, I had not any knowledge whatsoever of the difference between EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, and then what real-time communications, ITC, instrumental transcommunication. But I saw it for the first time with Chad Lindbergh from Fast and Furious, and he was on the show with John L. Tenney. I never remember the name of the show. And
John Tenney.
yes, 30-something people on the top floor of the Glen Tavern Inn in Santa Paula, California. Everybody introduces themselves, and then Chad goes last. And as soon as he says who he is, 10 seconds maybe or so, and the voice goes, "I know Chad." And I was like, whoa, how did he do that? Where did he get that thing? And who do I need to sell to buy it? I was sold. It was a Spirit Box SB7. I went, this is phenomenal. You can real time? You don't just have to record and go home? So I was hooked. Flash forward, 2019, very much unlike Tony, who is an unsung hero in the Ghost Box community, I think. Not that he's not known or respected. He's very respected. But he never sold his boxes, and he built some of the best I'd ever seen because he did it for research. So I don't have that skill set. If I was soldering things on a regular basis, I would high five you with fewer fingers. So I don't. But I wanted to contribute and dive into ITC. And then, lo and behold, to come across the works of Dr. Annabelle Cordoso, who's the last living pioneer, not the TV pioneers, the EVP, the actual research pioneers from Europe. She's the last one left. From Freidrich Jurgenson, Marcello Bacci, Constantine Rodove, David Fontana. She's the one. I get to know her works. I read her books. I become friends with her. Now Tony and I, to this day, still talk to her. She endorsed our work. She endorsed my first book. And I saw Marcello Bacci, who made direct radio voice most famous in Italy, using a vacuum tube radio on an empty, vacant shortwave channel. And it was better and more realistic in real time than I'd ever seen any Ghost Box do. And I looked at Lourdes and I went, how is nobody doing this? And the answer is because it's not on television. It didn't get the marketing campaign that the Spirit Box got. So I said, we're going to try this. And this is not bragging now. We sat in front of white noise for hours and then reviewed that same recording for hours for a few years. Heterodyning, blending frequencies, tried everything. And then we honed it till it got really, really good. And then 3 or so years into it, that's when we started doing podcasting. We became very close with the Rathmans, and Tony and Cherie got on board. And that was another advancement milestone for us. When somebody gets involved with a cause and the progress is that notable, and you can't not see it. It's just when they got involved, we leapt forward really quickly, and we saw improvements. So that's where direct radio voice took off. Then flash forward, which we'll explain later, removing the radio as the source of our white noise. We figured direct radio voice was not the best name because there is no radio. So hence, through Tony's acquisition, Staticom. Lourdes, my partner who's not here, huge into EVPs prior to that. She's a court reporter by trade, so she hears everything. So that's just to give her a little mini intro because she's not sitting here at the moment.
Wow, absolutely stunning. And just to answer your question, that show was Ghost Stalkers.
Thank you. Hopefully I don't forget it anymore. Never.
No, I mean, that is fascinating. I think in the paranormal field, EVPs are the most sought after evidence in paranormal investigations. I mean, photos are great. A lot of the technology that is out there, but it seems everybody wants to catch an EVP because that would more or less be harder to kind of faked than it would be to as a photo or anything else, because we know a lot of the equipment that is out there is easily fooled by either radio frequencies that are coming off people's cell phones, electrical boxes, and all these other gadgets and how they're used. So EVPs are definitely top of the line and what people are really sought after. So I know we have a lot of clips, but I know Michael John has a question for you here. Michael John, what were you thinking? I could see these things. He's got a question on his mind. It's burning.
So you guys, you guys get together. So Tony, or sorry, Ron, you're in New Jersey, and Tony and Cherie, you guys are in Phoenix, Arizona, correct?
Correct.
So now, how does that work? Do you guys just meet up at places and work together? Or is it all online? How do you get her done?
A lot of it's done online. We probably connect with Ron and Lourdes multiple times a week, whether that be through StreamYard, whether that be on the phone, whether that be however. But we're bouncing ideas back and forth off each other all the time. The research evolved that way. One of the biggest blessings was for Cherie and I is working with Ron and Lourdes, because we have similar outlooks on what we're trying to achieve. The working environment is absolutely ideal, and that's another reason why the progress has grown so rapidly and so dramatically. So it's been a fantastic adventure.
Yeah, I think the chemistry of four of us are very perfect because we know each other, we understand each other, and
Right.
they're the best.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. There's a camaraderie that's undeniable. It happened before we were doing DRV and Staticom together. That was one of the reasons it was a no-brainer. You know, we're doing this for 3 years, and then here's these two people who go, we'd like to be involved. We think we can help this project move forward. And they were two of the kindest people we had ever met. We had already had an idea how they operated. They were considerate. They thought about other people, not just themselves. They had been kind to us and other people. And then here's this guy who's building boxes for a dozen years and never sold one, which again is not a knock on those who sell them. I get that it's a little cottage industry, but I mean, who can't use the extra money? But that wasn't why Tony was doing it. And I thought that's life slapping me in the face going, this guy is not your average ghost box guy. Again, there's anything wrong with that, but he's got something different that's going on here with what his purpose is. And that would be silly to not join forces with people like that. And man, that was one of the best decisions we've made.
We appreciate
I'm
that.
trying to convince him to sell it, but he doesn't want to.
No, it was never meant for that. It was meant for the research, and their demonstrations of what we achieved prior to Ron and Lourdes showing us DRV, and then us making it what Staticom is today. So, but one of the things, you made a comment, Dale, about everyone going after EVP, and Cherie and I have said this for years, but one of the best thing about an EVP is that how did it get there? How did it show up on the recorder? But what's more important than that, I don't care if you've got a REM pod, I don't care if you've got some music box player that detects motion, you're limited in what it's telling you. When we get an EVP, I can tell you right off the bat before I understand what they replied. I can tell if they're male or female. I can tell if it's an adult or a child. I can tell their emotional state. Are they happy? Are they angry? Are they upset? I can tell if they have some sort of accent or territorial dialect by the words they're using, how they're being pronounced. All this information gets dumped on you, and then you can still listen to what answer they gave to your question. So it is unbeatable in regards to any other device out there on the amount of information you can receive, which is why Cherie and I, after the first couple months hearing EVPs and receiving them, went down that path, went from EVP to ITC, or instrumental transcommunication, two-way communication. And then when we found out about DRV, I'm like, wow, this is incredible. And then we made it into Staticom, which is like Ron was saying, we removed the radio. There is no more radio. So skeptics, scientists say, oh, you're just getting stray radio waves. That's impossible with Staticom.
Right.
It cannot pick up radio. And then the other low-hanging fruit was, oh, you're just hearing warbles and artifacts. Well, between Ron and Lourdes and Cherie and I, we have focused on the clarity of the speech coming back to us to alleviate that people go, I'm not sure what they said. I didn't hear. When you hear some of the clips, you'll be amazed at how clear this is.
Yeah, and if I can tag on to that too, one of the things, and this is, audio engineers had been some of the people who had given us some critiques, and some of them the biggest endorsements. And so Lourdes by trade, paid by the state of New York to listen linguistically and interpret testimony. So when I'm looking at an audio engineer knows how sound behaves, knows how to produce sound, knows the characteristics, attributes of sound. or someone whose vocation it is, whose expertise is listening and identifying language and words. I'm going with the court reporter every time. Yeah. So she had pointed out a lot of times, they go, well, because they did blind studies before and it was mostly ghost box stuff. And they go, all right, well, 40% of people heard the same thing and 30% of people heard different things. And then here's the thing, and she always says this, if somebody says rip and then she hears trip, clearly our hearing can be fallible. So she misheard the word, but it doesn't mean that speech was not provided. Right. That was still language. It was still the spoken word. It was just misunderstood. So that blind study that says people don't hear the same thing doesn't do anything except speak to the characteristics of people's hearing deficiencies or differences. The other thing I wanted to tag on to that Tony mentioned was, and this is one of the things we meld on as a group, how do we vet the authenticity of this? We don't want to look foolish. We don't want to fool ourselves, right? So no radio. So the two main things we would get was you're getting radio voices. Boom, off the table. Rathman had a lot to do with that. He should tell you during the episode. The other thing he mentioned, and this was the other thing from audio people, was warbles and artifacts, right? Because they say that white noise is random and we can always discern patterns and randomness. So I'll unpack that for you. First of all, to say that we can discern patterns is not a statement of debunkery. That's an appeal to our intellect. Right. Because that's how we communicate, right? We don't hear the cat call, meow, 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 go, oh, he wants to get in the car and drive again and get some treats. That doesn't happen. So the fact that we're discerning language that we understand that's cohesive and has a message, that says something. The other thing, and this is huge, and this is not just like a scientific thing, but even in the paranormal, we use the word random a lot. Random is an empty drawer. We say random when at the time we can't calculate or compute what's going on. So we just say that it's random. But white noise is not fundamentally random. It's got affected charged ion particles, electromagnetic fields, quantum fields. So there's things to deterministic speech, we think also. So there's things that are influencing what's going on. But they say random because it's not feasible to calculate it at the time. So it's not random fundamentally. What it is computationally irreducible. At the time, you can't do it. Same thing can be said about the coin toss at the Super Bowl, right? It's angle, right? Angular momentum, trajectory, gravity, wind speed, barometric pressure. So nobody's going to calculate that stuff. They're going to go, it's random, heads or tails, right? Because it's just easier. It's a convenience. So that's what we say. So those were the two things that we had, and we took them as cynical things off the table.
Okay. I want to ask real quick here. Now, where are these voices stemming from? And what I mean by that, let's broaden the horizon on that. Interdimensional, time travel. There's so many possibilities. I mean, it's been argued before, even with just a basic EVP, if you will, compared to what you're talking about. It's basic next to this, for sure. Where do they come from?
That's a great question. Tony, I don't know if you want me to take it and then you take it.
Yeah, why don't you start? I'll jump in because, yeah, go ahead, Ron.
All right, because we have takes that are very harmonious with each other, but not the same necessarily. And I love where he's coming from on this also. We don't know where it's coming from, the origin. We always try as a group to can we explain this with what we know to be part of reality or nature now, right? Because that's what happens a lot is we invent theoretical entities to try to flesh out an explanation and things that we don't have any empirical data or anything to support it. That's like if you know the Evereshian many worlds interpretation, right? Anytime you make a decision, another you pops into existence in another dimension, and a whole other timeline goes out, and it happens every fraction of a second. There's another, but that allows for everything, so you're never wrong, right? And if you have a theory that allows for everything, you have a theory that explains nothing. So we try not to invent things, and also the way you look at the data. So they're interdimensional, possibly. Could we theorize that? Yes. Can we prove there aren't interdimensional beings? No. But we look at, does it have empirical support? Does it have internal contradiction, or is it cohesive as an explanation? You could look at the same data more than one way, and you could theorize with what we know, or you can invent theoretical entities. If you have, for example, and Tony loves when I tell this, if I have footsteps in the mud outside my house, at that same data, I can look at that and go, well, a burglar came up to the house. He was going to break in. He saw a magnet in the window for an alarm system. The door was locked, thought it was a bad idea, left. With that same data, I could also say a ship came down from 4 galaxies away, landed in the neighbor's backyard, broke into his tool shed, stole his potato chips and his Crocs, came over to my house, realized the door was locked, smelled popcorn 2 doors down, and left, took the popcorn, and went back into space. I could say the same thing with the same data.
Right.
But which one is fleshing out this story unnecessarily with things that we don't know? So we try to explain it from what we do know. And then for gaps in the thing, we look for, is there anything empirically that we can support at least that maybe makes sense without just leaning into something with spiritual bypassing, which is to take logic and science and just, it doesn't, ghosts just do this. They just know how to do it. And we move on.
Yeah. So the other part to that and is, like Ron said, those variables of who they are, what they are, and where they're communicating from. We don't know. And there's many more variables on the other side that we don't know than that we do know. So like Ron said, we try to do that straight line to connect the dots without zigzagging all over the place. What we believe happens with Staticom is that when they speak, we are using white noise as a layer base. That's where all these voices are coming from. And white noise has no vocal data in it whatsoever. Not syllables, not words, not sentences, nothing. Voice should not be there. But what we believe happens is through stochastic resonance, which means when they speak, and we've mapped this out, they're at different hertz all the time. They match some of those hertz in broadband white noise, which is 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, every single sound the human ear can hear. Mm-hmm. They'll layer a group of those, and then that pushes their voice above the base layer of the white noise. That's called stochastic resonance. Their voice gets elevated by the white noise underneath it. Then we lop off the white noise base. All you get then is the voice. That's how we believe this is occurring.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. That's
a lot of big words.
But I mean, taking the approach that you guys are and taking out a lot of the elements, like the radio element being the number one, that is so important, because then it's harder to deny what's coming through the system. So you guys sent me over a lot of videos, so I'm going to try to start getting through these. So as I play a video, you guys can both comment on the video itself, what was happening, what's going on, and just kind of explain a little bit. So here's the first one.
Maybe they're trying to connect. And since it's doing another,
I'll let it play out for a minute.
I'm gonna message her now. If that's you trying to connect to Tony and Cherie, please keep doing your thing then.
What happened here? What happened to us? Sorry about that.
Wow.
So
that was very interesting. So Rod, do you want to comment on that? Because I think that was one of the videos you sent me over.
Yeah, the short version of that story is that when we first started building out the Staticom project, all the software and the elements in it, I was on a different computer and the resources were not enough. And it got to a point when I was maxing them out constantly, and Tony and I were on the phone with each other like therapy. And he did. He talked me off the ledge more than once. Not ashamed. And so that night was the last night on the old computer, and I happened to free up some resources enough to fix it temporarily. So the beginning, you heard the buffering and skipping. After that, it freed up a little bit and it worked. And then I said, what just happened? And then the voice spoke to exactly what happened. My instrument appeared to have pulsing beats because it was going,
Yeah.
So that was a keen awareness of what's going on in our environment. And we have theories about how we think that happens also, but that was clearly, they identified what the problem was.
Right, and it had timing and relevance to the question he asked, and that's that's the be all end all to any, whether it be EVP, ITC communication, is did the answer, was it from a timing standpoint, did it answer, and from a relevant standpoint, did it answer the question? And that clearly, Ron said, what was the issue? You know, bad connection, skipping beat, pulsing beats, or.
So are you doing this from your home?
Yeah, we all do it from our home.
Nice.
We do it from our home. We do it from location, wherever needed, necessary, or that we want to.
Because some people wouldn't dare do anything in their home, you know, whether it's EVP, a Ouija board, or even a little bit of scrying. They'd be like, no way. I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people like that won't touch it. After 14 years of communication, we've never had a problem with anything communicating with us. Have we brought back stuff from investigations? Yes, we have. But in 14 years of communication, never had an issue. So we continue to do it.
We know a couple also that doesn't do. We know a couple also that doesn't want to do it in their house. And Tony gave the spirit one of his spirit box, and which is Chris and Audra.
Right. Well, they don't want to do it because they've got psychic abilities and they don't need it. So that's
what I'm trying to say. They don't want to do it in their house.
Yeah, I think it should be a comfort decision. You know, your home has to feel right for you. From our perspective, at least like when Lourdes and I started direct radio voice research in 2019, the idea was that we got from the pioneers that you were sitting weekly at the same time, the same day, if you can, to develop a connection and kind of like a schedule. And it played out the way they said it would. But in order to do that, I wasn't going to rent out a space somewhere to listen to static. It wasn't in the budget. So here I was.
And that's always the thing too. Getting into a lot of places, it costs you money just to try experiments where in your own home, or if you go like cross the street to the local graveyard or something, but then you're looking at electricity problems. That is fascinating. So let's get on to this second clip. I also believe that came from Ron. Let's try this out.
Hi, Lourdes.
Hi. How are you? I'm good. I'm glad to hear that you're good. Who's speaking to me? I miss you too, I guess. I don't know who it is. You have to tell me who you are.
Wow, that was amazing. I mean, that was like talking to somebody in real time, like somebody else was in the room. And to even acknowledge that they were even a ghost, I mean, that is interesting because I know that is one thing, when we're out in the field, do we dare ask if they know they are dead or they're a ghost? Because from my understanding and the people that I've learned with, I mean, there's just, you just basically talk to them like they're human and they're like real. And that's how you get your responses. But the responses you guys were getting there was absolutely amazing. So where was this taking place at?
This was in the hotel room in Massachusetts almost 2 years ago at the Massachusetts Paracon. I was testing out direct radio voice to see how it sounded. Lourdes just came out of the shower. So now when you understand that the guy was saying, I'm staring at your face, he was trying to be PC, but he was probably lying his ass off. And, you don't get used to this stuff no matter how long you do it, right? Because we heard hi, Lourdes. So she said, hi, how are you? And she didn't expect a response like a phone call. But he went, I'm good, babe. Love this bitch. And it was like, wait, what? Who am I talking to? I'm Avon Jennings. He gave her a name.
Wow.
So that was one of the things that, again, for us, and Tony's and Cherie have been through this a ton of times too. It surprises you, even though that's part of your modus operandi for doing it, is you getting contact in real time and there's the responding to the moment, and it still kind of hits you, like especially when it levels up like that.
Yeah, And what's nice about Staticom also, it's not like a spirit box. Spirit box will only spit one word, but with Staticom, you can have a conversation, a long conversation. It's a two-way communication, and that's what nice about the Staticom. It's a method. It's not a spirit box.
Right. That's exactly spot on. It's real two-way communication. I mean, Cherie and I have had a conversation up to 7 minutes long.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Now they have. And we just came back from Wilson Castle in Vermont literally today. And we had a room full of people and they were sitting there for an hour. And the whole time it would go quiet and somebody asked a question and you would hear a voice come out. The boxes work. We're not denouncing. Tony knows better than anybody. He built them. The boxes work. But there's a brevity or shortness to the messages. And we think, based on what Tony said, our theory is that the stochastic resonance, which is basically one frequency matches one in the white noise to get amplitude, right? We think that the boxes work the same way. They're not. Think about this from a theoretic standpoint, right? Because the boxes are laying on physics to explain what they do. And then that's the one thing that kind of belies the whole methodology is fragments of sound that are happening in real time are being put into place to form certain words with certain allophones and phonemes at certain times at the exact moment somebody needs a word at breakneck speed. You couldn't do that playing Scrabble on cocaine. It's just too fast. Right? There's no latency in the process. Not that I've ever tried to play Scrabble that way, but it could help. So there's no latency in the process. So there has to be something else going on.
Right.
The resonance makes sense. They're using the white noise, and every time it hits a frequency, when it tunes into something, even for that fraction of a second, it severs the contact with the white noise. So there may be longer messages coming through Ghost Box, but they're not being heard because the methodology is truncating itself.
Yeah, the radio stations, when it hits them, shuts the spirit off from the white noise to communicate. Yeah. That's why your messages are so short through a spirit box, because it's scanning radio stations at 100 milliseconds per second. Well, there's too many radio stations going through, and the spirits are literally trying to answer with the fractions of white noise in between. When we realized we didn't need an RF signal, they don't have that interruption. It is pure white noise. All they have to do is speak, and we get full sentences.
Plus, we don't have to review it. Unlike before, we have to review it.
Right,
we have to record and review it. But this Staticom, we don't have to review it. We can hear it right away and clearly.
In real time.
In real time.
Wow.
So what is the absolute creepiest, freakiest, weirdest moment you've ever had using this device? I mean, something like, oh my God, like you guys were like literally knocked out of your boots. Was there ever a situation like that where it got scary?
I think the one of Lourdes and Ron with the you guys have that video clip.
Oh, Shanley?
Yeah.
Oh, the damnation.
The damnation, yes.
Yeah, that's an unnerving one. I don't think Tony probably has the same. I think Tony Cherie. I don't think we've ever had anything scary. A lot of times it's kind of startling. Like just this past weekend, and I made a clip for our show tomorrow. She was in the room with me, and she wanted me to come upstairs to see our friend Sam Baltrusis do a seance thing. And I was the last one in the room where Staticom was set up, and she left. And I was running it just to test it. And before I shut it off, a voice says, "Ron, go upstairs. She asked you to." And I was like, so, and the lady who owns the castle came in the room. She goes, "I thought somebody was in here with you." I went, "No." She goes, "That was your method?" I went, "Yeah, that was that thing."
Wow, that is absolutely amazing. All right, let's pick up another clip here. I don't know if this is one from Tony or from
The
Ron.
Knights Templar Order.
Tony.
Can you let me know when you're here? Can anyone who was part of the order come forward and give me your name? If you were a Knights Templar, let me have your name, please. Or the name you used as a Knights Templar.
It's breaking up.
Mm-hmm.
I think that broke up a little bit.
Yeah, it I don't know why it is, but every time I play MP4s on here, when it gets to the very end, it kind of starts skipping or stopping.
Mhm.
But no, that's I mean that was answering your questions just as you were answering it, like right off the bat. There was no delay in their answers. It was just like you asked a question, and as soon as it came through, it was like boom, right there.
Yeah, that was about an hour and a half session we did as a request from somebody wanting to see what kind of answers would come through. And those are just little clips from it. But yeah, it was answer after answer after answer.
And now, Tony and Cherie, you guys also host, I see here on your bio, weekly live Facebook broadcast. It's called Entity Voices Paranormal. What brought that about?
We started that over 4 years ago. And actually, we started out just Cherie and I. We had on one guest who became co-host with us. Then we invited guests all over the country, sometimes all over the world. We'd review their evidence. We would analyze how they captured it. Then we had Ron and Lourdes on as guests. They were talking about what they were working on. And we invited them permanently as guests. So there's actually 6 of us, Cherie and I, Chris and Audra, Ron and Lourdes. And we review evidence from investigators all over the place.
Very interesting. You know, and that's a unique perspective too, is for people to have that opportunity to send you some of their evidence and see what you guys could do with it and make sense of it, as far as doing using just a regular recorder, because obviously nobody has the technology that you guys are using right now to do what you guys are doing.
Has that technology, it's just a computer, a
Yeah.
laptop. So it's more into that, but you know, the components are mind blowing.
Oh, the results are. The hardware is nothing special.
That's an important distinction to make, right? It's a method, not a box or a device, as Cherie said earlier. And it's a Frankenstein's monster. We experimented for years, and Tony and Cherie got involved, and they experimented for more years with us. So we put together stuff to try to serve the purpose of clarity and having the messages be easier to discern and all that. So it's not just one particular piece of software. The computer's important because I maxed out my other one and it wouldn't run anymore. So there definitely is something to be said about that.
So
Ron, you went from being a stand-up comedian at some point. Do you still do that?
I don't do it anymore, but it is one of those things that, like a Swiss Army knife, it's like you'll always find a use for it at some point. It's a very useful thing to have done with public speaking, with lecturing, and ironically, with our group now, we've taken on a philosophy of consciousness called analytic idealism, and so I've always been interested in philosophy. I've always been a satirist, as far as looking for inconsistencies, hypocrisy, continuity of thought. So it's been beneficial. And then so my approach to looking at the field and what the field does, and then a lot of the axiomatic thinking, that stuff that's been handed down from generations in the paranormal, it's just how it is. Ghosts go in and out of mirrors like portals. I've never seen anything to substantiate that as a theory or any even guesses at how it happens. We just kind of take it axiomatic as it's just, that's just how it is. So I look at these things now because I think that our field has a microscope on it, and we get criticized, a lot of us, for not having PhDs or masters a lot of times. And I think that we can do better if we stop spiritual bypassing, which is just saying that ghosts just know how to do this. We just kind of, if you have a theory that clashes with known laws of science, you have a bad theory. You need to rethink it. It doesn't. Science is different. Science speaks to what nature and reality will do next. It's predictive modeling. It doesn't tell you what nature or reality is. That's a philosophical argument, which is why we've taken on a metaphysics, and that's what it is. By definition, metaphysics is not spiritual woo-woo stuff. It means literally what there is standing behind the physics. So that has always been something that's helped me to have that kind of a analytical, pick things apart mindset.
Okay. So I'm a huge animal guy. I've had dogs majority of my life. Recently, I just after divorce and all that good stuff, I ventured into cats. That's my thing now. But why I'm even bringing that up? Have you guys ever encountered animals in the Staticom experience here?
Not yet.
Yeah, we have.
Oh
So
my
has
gosh, yes,
so has
yes.
Anthony. Anthony asked
Oh,
for the
yes,
dog to
yes,
bark.
yes.
Dog
Yeah.
bark.
Very good. Yep. Yeah,
Nice.
we've had a little bit of it.
That's so cool.
So also just sticking with Ron just a little bit. So you've written 4 books. Could you just talk about what your books are basically about and where people are going to be able to find your books at?
I appreciate it. They're on Amazon, and the very short version of it is they kind of chronicle my story. The first one's about the field, direct radio voice, getting into it. The next one's a little bit more technical, a little bit more conceptual. Third one has some stories from the Digital Seance Initiative or TDSI events that we do and Tony and Cherie do. Profound, meaningful stories that people have had happen to them. It has some also educational, hopefully, stuff in it. The fourth one, called Paranormalization, Memoirs of an Academic Layperson, gets a little bit more into theorizing and hypothesizing with regards to consciousness. Book 5 is almost done. It's close to done. I've also written 2, one has been published, academic papers, a reimagining of stone tape theory and psychometry in a way that makes sense. I believe it happens, but I don't think it happens in the way that people think it happens, because that violates all kinds of laws of science, and it has a lot of explanatory gaps in it that people in the field just take it as, oh, that's just how it is. But if you look at what they're saying, they're leaning on physics at the same time. That's what's undercutting them. And every book, I think every book has Tony Rathman.
Oh, thank you. Also, just to let you know, anyone who's looking for additional information on Staticom, we produced a 3-part docuseries on Paraflix. It's over 3 hours long in 3 sections, but it literally goes through every aspect of how we put this together.
Wow.
So if
So
someone
when we
watch
talk
these,
to the unknown.
sorry, for someone to watch these, they could build their own essentially, or
Well, I don't know if the documentary is going to give enough to build it, but it's going to definitely let you understand the theory behind it, how it works, and how we believe the communication is happening. And it doesn't take much to take what it speaks about in the documentary and figure it out.
okay. And sorry to cut you off there, by the way.
It's all right.
So you guys are also have a show on the UnX Network.
Correct.
Do you guys want to talk about that a little bit and what that's all about, when they can view it? Episode, like how many, is it a weekly episode? Is it a monthly episode?
It's weekly, every Monday night. It's called Entity Voices Paranormal Evidence. That's what we were talking about before. It's where we have guests on, sometimes like tomorrow night. It's every Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. We're going to show Staticom stuff that was captured as early as the last couple of days.
Yeah.
That we're going to be showing our own evidence, but we do investigators from all over.
Yep.
That's amazing. So if you guys had a dream location of where you wanted to try out your work at, where would be the one place you would love to go to and do some experiments with Staticom?
Mine's easy. Skinwalker Ranch.
Ooh, nice.
Ooh, that is a good one.
Yes.
How about you, Ron?
For me, Edison Labs in West Orange, New Jersey, partly because of Edison and his idea of possibly building a theoretical phone to the dead, his interest in that. Also, my grandfather worked for Edison at Edison Labs there as a chemist for Thomas Edison. So to me, it would be really cool to go in there and see if there was anything unique that would come of the communication in that location.
Very, very interesting for sure. I would think more of a place like Stonehenge, where so much energy and so much history and the things that have taken place on the land of where Stonehenge is, I think that for sure, like a device like yours would definitely tap in and be able to answer a lot of questions that people have of exactly what Stonehenge is and how it was created.
Yeah, that's Lourdes' bucket list. If she was sitting here, she wants to go to somewhere like that, some historic, like Stonehenge. That probably would be one of the ones, and do what we do. That would be her list.
Absolutely amazing.
Now, do you guys go on tour and, like, for example, head out to conventions or Paracons, get a booth or do talks, workshops, anything about EVPs, etc.? If so, where are you guys going to be next?
Ron and Lourdes may have a few in between, but we will be at Gettysburg,
July
July 26th.
and August.
No, that's the symposium.
Yeah, that counts.
Yeah,
And that's
Yeah,
you.
we're also doing a paranormal symposium, which is basically just theories and practice and research done within the paranormal. Staticom will be presented there as well. We will give a full presentation, demonstration, and everything in between.
Yeah,
The two of you.
well, so for those, yeah, that's the important thing about those two is that the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash in July, and then the Paranormal Symposium, which is an academic-driven symposium where we have to not only present, we had to get approved by presenting an abstract first, and then we have to present a white paper when it's over. We're trying to take a very educational, intellectual, cerebral approach to the field, which we thought was great. Our paper and our position is ITC and analytic idealism, which is a philosophy of mind. It is a consciousness-based philosophy that basically says that reality, in essence, is experiential. It's mental, and it allows for everything that we do to be normal, not paranormal, natural, not supernatural. And then a lot of the landscape doesn't need these grandiose explanations because it makes sense and it doesn't clash with science. So we're presenting that. Lourdes and I just got back from Vermont at Wilson Castle. We did an event there for the weekend. So we have those two with the Rathmans, which is great because that's one of those rare instances now where twice we're going to get the four of us in the same room speaking on the same cause, which is the best when we get to do that. And then additionally, Lourdes and I know, I think July 20th, we're doing My Haunted Manor USA, an episode with Daryl Marston. I know it's connected to the My Haunted Manor that's also in the UK. And then in September, we're going out to do Festival of the Unexplained. Lourdes and I were to present and lecture. They're bringing us out for a few days to talk about Staticom and analytic idealism as a philosophy of mind as well.
Wow,
Well,
absolutely.
busy, to say the least.
Absolutely. So if anybody wanted to find you guys on social media or anywhere, where would be the best place to find you guys?
Well, we've both got YouTube channels. I'm sorry. Yeah, you guys have one as well. We have one, Entity Voices. They have Gonyak Paranormal. There's a Staticom YouTube page that is shared by both of us. Most of the stuff is up there. They have GonyakParanormal.com website. We have EntityVoices.com website.
Tony Rathman. Facebook?
Yeah, I mean, any of our Facebook shows, whether it be Tony Rathman, whether it be Ron Yacovetti, Cherie Rathman, Lourdes Gonzalez, there's stuff about Staticom all over. But the websites, the YouTube channels is the best place if you're looking to see examples of what we've captured and responses we've got.
Absolutely amazing. I mean, you guys only seem to be scratching the surface of what's really happening out there as far as technology wise. Like, I mean, I know people are always trying to build a bigger, better communication device to the other side, but it seems like what you guys are doing is years above anything that I've ever witnessed, and that's truly amazing that you guys are out there doing what you guys do. So I just want to say thank you guys so much for coming on here and to explaining what it is you guys are doing and the amazing work and the evidence that's coming through. It's like, wow. I mean, I know we barely scratched the surface of what you guys are doing, So we're definitely going to have you guys back on some more to dive in deeper and to find out, because I know I've got so much more questions. One being, what type of program do you use on the computers in order to get your recordings or your sound through? Like, is there a special type of voice program out there that you guys are using?
No, it's not a voice program. It's a program called VST. It stands for Virtual Studio Technology. It's basically, if you went into a singing studio, it's basically every piece of equipment a studio has. You can adjust frequencies, you can bring noise levels down, you can amplify frequencies. It's that on a computer. And the only sound we put into the computer is white noise from a white noise generator. And that's where the voices come from.
Yeah, we took everything that people do in review, right? They go to a location, they take audio evidence home, they denoise it, they amplify it, they slow it down. We do all that in real time because the point is to try to have dialogue, and when you get home, conversation over. So we do it at the time of contact, and we were the first as a project to slow down the flow of live white noise. It had not been done before we had done it, the four of us.
In real time, right?
Yep. And it's made a difference. The other thing that's important too, because there's a lot of emphasis on the forward part of the technology, and the one thing that's as a substrate for what we're doing, the foundation was having reverence and appreciation for people who came before us. Because if we had not unearthed direct radio voice and dusted it off, there would be no Staticom project. Right. And that's something that got completely left in the dust when the ghost box revolution from television took off, and that became synonymous with ITC. So my inadequacy to build things led to what we're doing now, and thank goodness, because of the friendships and the partnerships that this has built for us, and then the work that this has built for us together. But it's always important to me to not lose sight of that legacy element of it. If it had not been for the work of Dr. Annabelle Cardoso and the people who pioneered direct radio voice like Freidrich Jurgenson, we wouldn't be doing this.
Right. Well said.
Absolutely. So I'm going to have one more question before Michael John does his thing. If you guys can each give one piece of advice to somebody who's listening to this live right now, somebody's going to be listening to it later on or on KGRA, what would be the one piece of advice you would give upcoming paranormal investigators or people that are looking into doing something along the EVP work?
I think the first bit of advice was if they're just looking to get into it, start out simple. Get a $40, $50 recorder and test it. Ask questions, review it, get your answers. Once you're into that and you want to take it further, you want two-way communication, there are a lot of good box builders out there, and they do work. Are you going to get the full sentences Staticom produces? Probably not, but I've heard a Spirit Box put out a sentence. I mean, it is possible. But start there, get involved with it. Hopefully by that time, people ask us, when's Staticom going to be able to be purchased? Well, we don't have that answer yet because there's 4 of us and we're still doing the research. And in order to turn around and get into selling and we just don't have the manpower to do that. So right now it's not available. But will it be in another year or 2? I don't know. Possibly.
Yeah, for me, I think for the people who really wants to be in this field, I think they should have the true passion and the heart to what you do. Because if you're only, just curious about what's going on, but you don't have the heart of really wanting to know what's happening. So I think you gotta have the passion in the field.
Absolutely, you do. Yeah. Good response.
I would say that we metaphorically refer to this as being in the field. And if you played any sport and you were playing in the field, let's say for baseball, you wouldn't just focus on the right and center fielder and ignore the other side of the field. So I think it's important to look at all of the elements and all of the players on the field, and then start drawing conclusions and try drawing theories and try to educate yourself on what's out there. Read, look at what's being done, what's been done already. I think that one of the issues we have in the field is epistemic dependency, where we take everything that's handed down and we just pass it forward, and we don't question, well, why is that? Why would you do that? People buy spirit boxes and they put them in Faraday pouches, but it's supposed to sweep radio. So then you're trying to block it from sweeping radio, and then they're running a speaker out on a little 3.5 millimeter plug, and that wire coming out of the pouch is now functioning as the antenna you just tried to neuter. So I think understanding process and understanding the field in its entirety. I mean, there is an element to a metaphysics to this. You can have a philosophy of it, understand more maybe of the sciences behind it, and don't just take everything for granted that this ghosts just do that. They just know how to do that. And to quote a friend of mine, if you know the incredibly awesome Lauren Hellickson, when she lectures, she always says, "How do you know if your device works if you don't know how your device works?" And I think that's a huge statement. Understand what you're trying to do, how it's supposed to work, and there are tons of people out there to learn from, people who've been there before us.
Yeah.
Talk to those people, reach out to those people. With the interwebs of today, that's a lot more of a feasible plan, to talk to the people who are sitting where you want to be. And take your time with it. The passion that Cherie said, don't grind through it. I think people get into the field and they can't wait to be on posters and advertised as highlighting at events, and that's not the most important part of this. If it is, you're in the wrong circus.
Correct.
Nice.
True.
True.
Absolutely. Better. I could not have said it any better than myself right there.
And with that, I want to say thank you so much to Tony and Cherie Rathman, Ron Iacovetti. Thank you all so much. I learned so many big words tonight. It's crazy. I could be hitting my dictionary after the show, but that's a good thing. With all due respect, a very good thing. We all definitely learned a lot. Thank you to everybody tuning in on the sidelines tonight with all their comments. Always good to see people getting involved here on the Paranormal Voice. From day one to day now, the creeps, the freaks, and the weirdos that make up the TPV Nation, we don't get to do what we get to do, and that's this right here, right now, without all of you. So hashtag blessed, thankful, grateful, humbled, and thank you all so much for that. We will see you all on the other side, but in the meantime, and in between time, happy hauntings.
Happy hauntings.
Thank you.